A very good evening to all the architects, students, teachers, and friends who have joined us for Future of Architecture 2021, episode 11. It is an honor to have been able to address and interact with so many architects from across the country and talking about the future of architecture, which is very relevant. Future of Architecture 2020 started last year when the pandemic began with three eminent architects from Tamil Nadu who spoke about the state of architecture and cleared up a lot of doubts about architecture to many students. In 2021, we decided the future of architecture should be more of a weekend lecture and a discussion and an interview with these architects rather than all of them coming on the same place. So this time we tried to make it as vibrant as possible, and we've successfully had 10 episodes where architects opened up about their personal lives, their problems, the issues, the awards, the kind of recognitions they received, and cleared so many doubts that young minds had. Now, today also we have with us architect Sriram Ganapathi sir from KSM Architecture. But before that, I would like to talk about the host, RVS Chennai Padmavathy School of Architecture, along with School of Art and Architecture, Manipal, School of Art and Architecture, Sushant University, and Manipal University, Jaipur, are co-hosting this program with us. A few words about RVS Chennai Padmavathy School of Architecture. RVS Chennai Padmavathy School of Architecture is also known as the Alternative School of Architecture. We would like to call ourselves the TASA. We believe in an alternative education system, and we constantly strive to make sure that education is very developed and innovative and up to the mark, which is actually trend setting and is very creative in the approach. We believe and we focus our architectural education on 5 strong pillars. The first pillar being the School of Change. In School of Change, we have focused towards creating 5 different wings, each year being called a theme, a particular wing in which the wing propagates the ideas, strategies, and evolves in multiple ways. And we are very proud to say that the kind of School of Change program that we have created and kickstarted has been very, very useful for us and has benefited the students in multiple ways. The 5 wings that have been created, each for 1 year, talks about the theme and the tone that it actually sets for the entire semester. The design studios are based on this theme. The second pillar is called the Live Project, where we students are involved in the direct construction of a real-time project in some part of the country, not as architects, but as contractors, as masons, as electricians, as plumbers, in actually building it. What has been designed has now become more built. And we get the opportunity to actually build these things. So 1 month in every academic year, students spend their time in building it. We've been able to build a senior citizens library at Surat, some eco cottages at Tiruvannamalai, and multiple projects which helps the students understand the struggle and the importance of building it with your own hands. The third pillar is called the Vertical Studio, which is actually an interactive student exchange program, which is possible because of the multiple institutional collaboration that RVS has across the country. We've been able to do a vertical studio with Sushant School of Architecture in Delhi, Manipal University, Jaipur, Kochi, Azadi College in Kochi, and Mangalore, and many other institutions. This vertical studio serves as a student exchange program where students address design solutions for serious ecological and social issues through design. And so the idea is for them to have become quick thinkers, form quick teams, and spend around a week to 10 days in different cities, understanding the culture, understanding the people and the city, and being able to react and respond to it. The vertical studio has been a great learning curve. The next pillar is called the Summer Winter School, which is a travel-based learning program for all the students where they can follow their passion and be able to work with architects on different materials, on different fields of architecture. It also focuses towards allied fields of design, such as fashion, product, etc., where students also get an open. Fifth pillar and the most important pillar. The fifth pillar and the most important pillar is the finishing school. Finishing school is the pillar which has also initiated this particular entire Future of Architecture series as well. And under finishing school, we make sure that the gap between education and practice is met, serving as a bridge between it and conducting events, classes, development programs, personality training programs for students to be able to attend and be able to be industry ready. The other thing that we have created in this year is also called the Travel Theme Studios. For the last 5 years, we've successfully practiced 5 travel theme studios on the themes of Kurinji, Neidal, Marudam, and Mullai. The idea of this travel theme studios is to choose a particular landscape for the first semester studio and create a travel program in the first semester, which sets the base for their architectural studio. This year, we got the opportunity to travel on a topic of Mullai, where the basic design and the art studio exercises were taken as inspiration from this landscape of Tamil Nadu. We are also proud to say that we are India's first college to kickstart agriculture within the campus. Agriculture meets architecture here, agritecture. and agriculture is going to be in the syllabus of the students of RVS Chennai. And we believe that in 5 years, they will be able to become half a farmer and understand the pains and the importance of agriculture in the country. Recently, we also completed a live project at Proto Village in Andhra, which is actually a sustainable living community that has showcased an alternative lifestyle. Students stayed for around 2 weeks there, understanding the importance of living sustainably directly rather than just talking about it and writing and designing about it. And this opportunity also helped them to build in an environment that was completely cut off from the urban setting and live there in limited resources, in limited time, and actually enjoy nature as well. This has all led us to develop a sustainable nature campus, where our college campus is going to be converted into an architecture village with a lot of new ideas, showcasing multiple sustainable materials where students can directly come, build, and actually learn. So the idea for the sustainable nature campus is for students to be able to design and build in the campus, and not only for students of RVS, but also for students of other campuses as well. This quarantine has helped us to create a program called the Quarantine Gurukulam, which is actually an old school methodology which we kickstarted during this entire quarantine time for students to be able to learn more and innovate, because we really felt that online education was creating a big hit on the kind of academics that we were practicing. So we created a program where students could quarantine themselves along with faculties in our nature campus or in multiple places to learn and innovate within them. And finally, the Center for Design and Innovation is the project that we have kickstarted in 2021. And we are very proud to say that this is South India's first space dedicated for architects, industries, and institutions to come together. And this space will serve as a place for all of us to discuss, debate, and take the ideas forward that we already have. So that is a small brief about RVS Chennai. And I'm really happy that we have come to the 11th session of today's program. We have today with us architect Sriram Ganapathi sir. Has sir joined us? Yeah. So sir, can you hear me? Sir, you're on mute. Yeah, great. Hi sir. Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you. So thank you for accepting this invitation to be a part of Future of Architecture, sir. And it's really a pleasure to have you with us. Sriram sir has been someone who's been more like a friend to me and also a mentor. I've actually spoken to him about so many different things through the past few years, and he's always been one who's given me a ear to everything that I have to say. And today we actually have preponed the session since the coming Saturday's Gandhi Jayanti. And even with the short span, we actually had a lot of questions that came today to ask, KSM Architect as a whole. So I'm going to be starting directly with the question, sir. Can we start?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start with the first question. Okay, 1 minute, sir. I'm just taking the question. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm going to read it out. KSM is actually known very well for its recent office, the office that has been built, and that has always served as something that has been an inspiration to many. RVS students have also got an opportunity to visit the office. So many questions came to us about your office and how it actually became a milestone in one of the projects that is actually also visited by so many students. So the question goes like this. Your office has been an important milestone in your growth. How did that happen? Now, I will just explain the manifestations of these questions that we received. We believe that many questions came and everyone is known KSM for its office at the moment, but I think the office is a byproduct of so many years of struggle from 1990 onwards. So I would like you to explain how did this big milestone happen and the journey.
Okay. It's I can give a very, very long answer for this, but so the thing is, we are a 30-year-old company right now, and we built our office. It's now 5 years since we have moved into our office. So it's taken us close to 25 years to actually build our own space. The thing is, we were in an office space which was our own, which was in a flatted building. We were in the 5th and 6th floor of a commercial building. We had bought that space and we were staying there. And what happens is that, that we speak a lot about energy, environment, natural light, natural ventilation and stuff like that. Now, here we are sitting in an office where the air conditioner is on all the time. Artificial lights are on all the time. And here I'm sitting and talking about natural light and air. So we were clearly not walking the talk, but we had no choice because that is the space that we had and that we had bought and we were using. So for a while, we were thinking that we needed to probably live in a space, build a space for ourselves, which kind of our ethos comes through in the space that we work out of. So we were looking for a piece of land, and also it's buying land and building costs a lot of money. So it took us a fair amount of time to be able to make enough money to buy a piece of land, and we could afford only a small piece of land. Since small, as in we were looking for a one-ground property, and we also wanted the property to be close to the metro because the metro is the new way of the way a city moves and progresses, and that's the way it should be. So transportation, we didn't want people to be driving to come to our place, but we could just catch a metro and come to our place. So our office is also almost 80% people use public transport. So all these things put together, we bought a piece of land and designed a space that we are happy with, and so that's it. So that is the genesis of the whole thing, and we built and designed our space the way we liked it, and I'm glad everyone, students, like it as well.
No, but my question here is 25 years is not a short period of time. And also, this was, financially also something that is a big, landmark that the office has reached. So I see that many young firms start off by renting out a very large office, doing very, really expensive interiors, and then end up having an issue about it. So how did this start? How did KSM start? How was the step? Because where you are right now, you like rightly said, you started off from a commercial building, but there must have been something before that. Because the initial starting point is very essential, be it 30 years back or be it now. I think it's important. So can you just elaborate on how that point was?
Yeah, so I'll just give you a brief history on KSM. So KSM stands for KS Money, as simple as that. He's the person who started this firm. KS Money has been my mentor, and I joined his firm in 1990 January is when we joined, and he was just starting the firm at that point because he was working with an organization called Gersi before that, and he wanted to set up base in Chennai, and he was 22 years older than me, and I was fresh out of college. That is, I had started my career at D.V. Doshi's office. At that time, it was Sangat, it was SDB, Stein Doshi Bhalla, when I was there. And then I worked briefly with Nataraj and Venkat. And then I met KS Money, and he said he's setting up this firm with no idea whether he would continue, because he said it's like a trial. And I said, I'd also like to take a break from the work that I'm doing. I was doing a whole lot of slope-proof houses with Nataraj and Venkat at that point. And I said, let's look at something different before I go abroad to do my master's and things like that. I mean, that is the mindset at that point. When we began working, I think the synergy was very nice. And even though we had a huge age difference, there was a mutual respect that we had. And we carried on, we did our work. Then I went abroad, did my master's. And I was thinking of working abroad at that point, spoke to Money, and then we were just talking. There was an opportunity for me to get a job with the United Nations at that point, because my thesis had gone well and things like that. Then he told me, he said, that's great, it's a fabulous thing to work with UN and stuff like that. He said, you'll have to go to countries in Africa and in South America and Asia and write a lot of reports. So that actually scared me more than anything else. I hate to write reports and stuff like that. So then reality kind of sank in and said that means I will not be doing any design work. So I just, within 2 weeks of that, I was actually back in Chennai and back at KSM. And so I'm talking about 1996, 1997. So that's when we really started setting up base in Chennai. And at that point, head is filled with a lot of. I've been a modernist for a long time, and a Corbusier fan, Doshi fan, and stuff like that. So, doing work in Chennai was a challenge. But then money also used to always say that keep your feet planted on the ground. You first have to build the trust of the market around you. See that you can build and execute projects, design, execute projects, and only then people will start taking you seriously. So he said, give yourself a 10-year window, after which you can really start dictating the direction of your design, direction of your practice. So that's exactly what we did. We did some rigorous work. We did a whole lot of interiors. We did a lot of developer projects. And then slowly we began to start working on, we built the confidence of the market. And then we started working on our ideas, bringing our ideas forward. People started listening to us and taking us more seriously. We always had this strong environment story, even well before the green story started. So although people look at the case and our office as the project that made people take notice, almost 10 years before that itself, we were doing a fair amount of work, which actually has a lot of content in terms of sustainability and environment-friendly work. And in our opinion, it is still very relevant. So that has been our journey really. And now we are happy in the space we are in, and we are able to really kind of choose the kind of work that we do. And people come to us for the kind of work we do. So yeah, it's a journey. And the journey is that it does take a fair amount of work before you really make an imprint on the building environment and the industry as such.
No, definitely. I think that's something that is a big take back, and 25 years is definitely the time I think it's taken for an office to establish itself in the way that it has come. And I also think that this story is something that I've also not heard, and this is quite nice to know that there is so much to the firm itself. Now, my next question is also on the same lines, because today we had more questions from younger firms, actually. Stability has always been a question for young firms financially. How do large firms handle that? Financial stability.
Yeah, so I think financial stability is something all architectural firms strive for and struggle with. So there is never I don't think there is a single architectural firm in the world that can say we are financially stable. There might be a few, but they probably don't run a pure architectural design practice. It's probably more an architectural design business. So for an architectural design practice, I think financial struggles are a part and parcel of the work. But at the same time, I don't mean that it's like a constant struggle. I think you can be a little smart in the way you handle your finances. So even with us, it has always been important that we have a good mix of projects. So oftentimes what happens is firms fall into the trap of you do let's take for example a developer project. You go and you come up with a good design, and the developer gives you a project, and then they call you and they say we're very happy with it. You take another, and then they tell a friend, and then they get another, and before you know it, you're doing 4 or 5 developer projects. And that's great, because you'll be like really excited and you'll be doing work on that genre of work. But the problem the problem is that, when you start getting comfortable with that one type of project, if the market changes, and it's bound to change, it's like, you're always going to have ups and downs, and your demands will keep changing. So when that happens and the developers start finding it difficult to sell their product, and liquidity becomes an issue, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, you find that you are doing work, but you're not getting paid. Your liquidity is a problem. There's a cash crunch and all that. So it's probably always a good idea to have a good balance. So initially, when we were working, we used to do, we were doing a lot of industrial work. Then we got into some interiors came, so we did interior work. And then there was developer stuff, so we started doing that. So then we realized that it's a good idea to have a broad-based practice. And we also found that it was a lot of fun by doing different genre of work. So soon we were doing hospitality, we were doing residential, commercial, institution, industry. Then interiors, we started doing interiors for all our projects. Now we've started doing landscape design. So what happens is that it starts getting, one is it's more fun, and there is a lot of learning from one type of project to another. Industrial projects have really taught us a lot, so which we can bring into, say, the commercial office buildings that we're doing, and then now we started hospital design. So what happens is there's a lot of learning from one to another, and it also gives you kind of a broad-based practice. So even if one of the industries dips, the market goes down in residential, your industry will probably keep you afloat, or your corporate interiors or interiors will keep you afloat. So it's a good idea to have a good balance. And this is true not only for young firms, it's true for senior firms as well. It's good to have a good balance.
No, it's actually a nice point that you've highlighted, that there should be a different mix of projects, and there should be a variety in which any firm handles it. Now, you had mentioned. Am I audible, sir?
I lost you, Reeves. I just
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So actually, you had mentioned that there is a difference between an architectural practice and an architectural business. You just mentioned it. I just wanted to. I'm a little curious to know about it, because how do you differentiate it?
I think that slipped out. No, what I mean, what I mean is, it is the amount of importance the practice gives for design and the nature of their projects. So,
yeah, okay. So I understand. So it's
just today I was speaking to another colleague of mine. Two former colleagues are setting up their practice, and they were just talking to me just earlier today. So just speaking to them, saying that at one stage in your career, when you're going down the path, and then you find that there is this really nice size project. It's a kind of a project that you've done already 10 of those, and you're getting another project at the same time, and it's going to give me say 100 rupees. And then the amount of time I would spend for that, there's another project which is smaller, but a very different kind of a project. Maybe a little school, or it might be a little memorial for something, or something different. And it probably will only give me 10 rupees. So the time is going to be the same. So then, to my mind, an good design architectural practice would say, and you have to choose between the two, you would probably choose the smaller project. But an architectural business will say, look, I have to feed so many mouths in this firm, and this is what it is, and these are you can always find justification for everything. But a business would probably choose the one that is going to fetch more money. So I think that is a very, very important. You come to a crossroad. Every practice will come to these crossroads. Then you'll come across this many times. At any stage, I'm not saying only when you're 5 years old or 10 years old or something. Even when you're 30 years old, you'll come across such crossroads. But it is probably you need to take a call at that point, and you need to choose. Choice is always in your hands. You need to choose and see if that project is more fulfilling as a design project. May not be financially fulfilling, but it might be, from a design standpoint, it might be immensely fulfilling. So that's something that you need to look at.
Definitely, I think the example is quite evident in showcases. Then I think crossroads. You would have also definitely been in those crossroads quite a lot of times in the last few years, and I think the firm's current status showcases that you've taken the latter decision in many points. I'm sure. So I'm going to go to the next question. 30 years into the practice, as a firm, how do you look at the state of architecture in our city and state? So you've seen that progress. You've been working with multiple platforms, multiple genres of projects. So how do you think the state of architecture is? So what do you think? Where do you think we're going?
No. I'm always an optimist. I always look at the happier sides of things, and I think Chennai is a great city, and we have grown really well. And in the last 30 years, and see one thing about though K.S. Mani hails from Madras, he studied in School of Architecture. He spent most of his working life outside. So when he set up the practice, when KSM was established in 1990, we had no base in Chennai. We didn't even know anyone. And same with me, I didn't do my architecture in Chennai. So we came to Chennai to work. So, so when we came here in 1990, Chennai was a very different place. The projects were done by, there were fewer architectural firms that used to handle most of the large projects. And whatever bits and scraps that we could find, we would just work with. And then the people are also, when I say people, when I say clients, they're not very welcoming. They were not very welcoming to newer architectural firms or practices. They would rather go to the known firms. And at that point, there was also a kind of a very closeted kind of a feel where, there was not too much of help between firms helping out younger firms. So there was no such concept. So, and also the quality of work, there used to be some fabulous work, I think, in Chennai, we've seen in the 60s and 70s. And gradually kind of lost character. And I think Chennai lost its way a bit in the nature of work, quality of work, quality of spaces, kind of buildings, the thinking behind the buildings, and so on. Because there were still very good architects doing work, but projects were few and far between. But now, if you look at it, every time you go out, I keep seeing something interesting on the road. There's something different here and there. People always talk about projects in Ahmedabad and Bangalore, Delhi, and things like that. I think Chennai has also got some very good designers. It's got some very good projects coming up, and the thinking is very different. There's a kind of a competitiveness among the young architectural firms that we have. The young architects who are doing. They want to do something different. They want to establish themselves, make a name for themselves for design, for content, design content. So I think it's looking good, and there are some very nice projects. There are some very good firms, very, very good firms who are coming up with good work. So I think it's great time to be in Chennai. Even if you're starting practice now, is a great place to start practice, because now the clients are more welcoming with newer ideas and thoughts.
No, but again, don't you think that the number of firms, constantly the increase in the number of firms that the city is facing, is having an impact over the market or the value of architecture? And there are certain ill practices, but I'm just saying, don't you think there are too many practices that are starting up? And how do you see that in terms of the market value of architecture itself?
We had a similar conversation just a couple of weeks ago, and there was a similar thought. But I think there's a heck of a lot of work going on. There is still so much of work to be done, and we need more and more architects. As simple as that. I think there's a lot of work, and it's just if everyone says, "Okay, I'm going to do good work," and that is my bottom line, then I think every project that's going to be done is going to be done well. When I say good work, I mean it should be sensitive. There should be some relevance. It's not just doing things which the client is told. So I have to follow this. This is easy. I do a number game, mathematical FSI game. It's not that. Quality of spaces, the experience of the spaces that you are going to create, and material, and there's so many things that you can do. So I think there is a lot of opportunities still for architecture. It's just to see the number of construction that's going on is just enormous all over the place. So I think there is a lot of scope.
Yeah, so that's actually very nice to see it from a very optimistic point of view. And so I think to all the firms who have listening to this, I think there's a lot of scope, there's a lot of value. But at the same time, you need to give it time. You need to establish and take the right decisions. So we're going to go to the next question. This is again a question that is about the process of the firm. Can you explain the process of the project in your office from start to end? So how do you start? Where does the project start? Is there a clear line that has been drafted for how the process that a project goes through?
Sure. So we are actually a small firm. I mean, when I say small firm, our size is we have always been around 20, 25 is the size of our firm. Today we are about 17, 18 during the pandemic and everything. But that's been the size of our firm always. So that's something that we've been comfortable with. So Siddharth Mani is my partner. He's Ksm Mani's son. And he's been with the firm now for almost 12, 13 years now. And of course, he's been a part of our firm even during his college days. He studied in SEP. So every year, summer vacation, he used to be in our office. So he's been very much with us. So we are partners in the firm. And being a small firm, every project is handled by all of us. So the design either begins on Siddharth's table or on my table, and we interact quite a bit along with our colleagues. We have our architects and our engineers. So we are a very collaborative design firm, but we have some very strong, like I told, the ethos. We speak to the, we speak a lot about climate. We speak a lot about material and sustainability and all that stuff. And then also for the experience. So normally, like whenever any project comes, there is a very clear brief. So we always look at what is it that we can do beyond the brief, stretching the envelope, and see what else we can do out of that. So these are all the things that we take forward, and we kind of mesh it with our sustainability story, and whatever be the genre, whether it's a factory, school, residential, an office building, a religious center. Now we're doing some religious spaces, a hospital, anything. We run it through the sustainability story. So the choice of materials and the level of detail that this project needs to go. Then there is always a cost aspect. We've got a very strong engineering team. So in our whole office, we've got 5 engineers, and these engineers are all the time trying to see, because one of the other important aspects about our design practice here is that whatever we design, we're very serious about that, saying that we want to get this built. We're not into making schemes and designs, and then project didn't make it, so we chuck it and then we move ahead. So if we invest our time and effort and energy into a project, we really like to see that project built. So the design process is also about feasibility of the project. So the finances of the client, of the project, the engineers come into the picture. Then we make a lot of mock-ups. We make a lot of trials, because there is a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of research in our practice, a lot of research. So once the design idea gets formed, sometimes the detail is a part of the design idea. Sometimes it's a concept and the detail comes later. So it depends on the nature of the project. So these engineers come in at all stages to keep the checks and balances in place, saying, no, this is a great idea, but it's not going to work. This budget, this client, it's not going to work. Or this material, the detail of this, the longevity of it might not work. So things like that. So it is a very, very collaborative effort. I know this word is used a heck of a lot today, but it's collaborative in the sense to make the design work. We have a whole lot of people who get together. And when we make our first design presentation, we take some time for it. When we make our first design presentation, we actually have details drawn up. Often, I would say at least 6-7 times out of 10, we'll be having details drawn up to say how we want to make it, how we want to execute this project, and so on. So, so that's the nature. So that's very, very deep involvement. So at design stage, we spend a lot of time, and we also do a fair amount of research. And we always try to see if there is something special, something new that we can try out in each project. So,
but now recently with the fast kind of construction formula that goes, it's actually very nice to see that engineers are a part of the design and the decision making process, which I think is this term between architects and engineers are always have this kind of a conflict outside in many levels. It's really good, but also the kind of pace in which the clients expect the design system. We see that in many projects there is a lot of back and front. The scheme gets approved, and then there is a change, and then there is a facade change, and then the facade or the first elevation of the building goes much later. Then so how does that work in your office? Because in terms of the coordination, because if a decision is being made as a team, then I think it's going to be workable, it's going to be possible. But at the same time, the alterations that happen in site have always been a place where I have seen also many young architects have issues with clients and issues with contractors. So how do you handle such issues?
Yeah, so you're right. It used to happen a lot earlier, but things have become much more streamlined now. Which is why I say that we get into a fair amount of detail at the design stage itself. So when we work with clients, we it's also important for the clients to be totally honest with us. So that's something that experience has taught us, that sometimes we look at a client and we know that this is not going to happen. So we look at a person who says, look, I've got X amount of money, and this is my intention, and this is my involvement in the design. Okay, so let us say there's a school, and there's somebody who comes and says, this is the kind of environment I require, this is the kind of space I want to create, and things like that. Because your program is fixed. I mean, there's nothing, it's not going to be very different from any other school. But we look at what is the intent of the client. That is very important. So, so because another architect designer whom I respect a lot is Padmavathy used to always say that we try to first get the client and we both sit on the same side of the table, and I think that's really, really important. It's a fantastic statement that he had made. So we really need to begin that trust, and we say that, look, we are in this together. You don't hide anything from me. If you have so much of money, tell me clearly this is the amount of money I have. So we know what the affordability range is. And then this is the kind of space I want to do. This is how I would like to stretch the envelope. So then we would work with them very closely. And then when we write out the brief again. And then when we come out with the design, we tell them We give them the design, we show them the detail, and we also give them the costs and say, this is what the project is going to cost you. This is the amount of time it's going to take. This is the time of the year you should begin, because this has got this particular detail. If it's got a basement, then we need to look at monsoons. So looking at the soil conditions, we get soil reports done. We discuss with the structural engineers. This is at scheme stage. I know some of the smaller, younger firms might not be able to dictate these things with their clients initially. But my advice always is that when we make a design, when you work out a design, the intention for design is to execute and finish that project. And for that project to be executed and finished, the one person who can actually think this through is the architect. And if the architect does not have the experience, then you must consult with certain engineers or contractors or people, builders who execute the project to understand whether they can execute this project. And then also look at what is it that it's going to cost. Because it's very easy for us to say, oh, I came up with this fabulous design that the client could not afford it. I think that's a wrong statement. The statement is the client should clearly tell you what he or she can afford. It is the designer who did not take that into account and design something which was unviable. So in most cases, I'm not saying that this is a very general, everybody is true to the whole thing, but I'm saying largely, if you follow this format of taking your design seriously and looking at it through its execution, almost imagine that it is built and find out what it's going to cost and what are the details, what are the material that you're going to use, availability of that material, and so on. Then you're good to go. And in terms of time. So I think these are all very important aspects that if you think it through, and as an architect, as a designer who's keen on executing that project, you must think the project through at the design stage. Take a week or 2 weeks more, but think it through. It is not only about pretty visuals. It's not only about that. Sometimes people think that I give this fabulous views and visuals and all that, and floor the client completely. And then after that, the reality comes and strikes you. Then you're scrambling for cover. That's not the way it should be. You should be able to design it and detail it, thinking it through. Imagine that the building is going to get built 12 months down the road or 18 months down the road, whatever the timeline is. So once you do it that way, then you will find you will have lesser problems. There'll be lesser changes. And there'll be lesser issues on the site. So that is very important. I know there's a lot of experience that comes into play, but I think the trajectory should be like this. Do your design to the last detail as much as you can.
Again, that I think this process is actually very correct. Even I have faced issues like this, where interesting visuals have always lured the client into getting the project done, but when the cost comes into the picture. But as an academician myself, the current academic space is something where students really don't get into the cost of any build form. And I think now I actually feel that that's very crucial as well. When I'm designing something, I should be able to get an estimate or a tentative value for anything that I'm going to be designing. I think that if this practice starts, from an academic space itself, I think it will strengthen the kind of architects that we produce. I think so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's actually something that that's my take from this, answer that you gave, because that's personally also I have faced this problem, and I think many firms do, not being able to detail it out. So I think we'll go. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
I'll just say that we are working in India. So I had a chance working for a short while when I was in Canada, and I remember I was working with a small design firm. One of them was my professor, and we were working designs, and then we finished doing designs. There were some concepts, some models were being made. We finished all that, and then we were designing a marketplace. So it is a market. It's like a shopping, but as more like a market. Then I said, how about the costs? And he looked at me and said, what are you talking about costs? We don't need to show costs. We're just giving them a design. So then I said that we don't work that way in India, we actually work because we have to check out what it's going to cost. So he says, no, we're just going to give a concept. And then they would come back and they would look at the design, and then they will arrive at what could be the cost. So then I realized that, this is a completely different culture that we are looking at. Whereas in India, everything, even if I'm going to buy a shirt, I'm going to first go and check the label and see what's the cost of the shirt. I'm not looking at it only for the design, right? So for us, everything is rooted to cost. That's the nature of our country, and I think that's important for us to realize. So how can an architect, how can a designer work on a project without knowing what that design is going to cost? I think that is a fallacy. In our academic world, we really need to know. And I'm not saying that it needs to get, immediately we should not get into boring estimation and costing, that kind of thing. But I think there should be an idea. We should have an idea about availability of material, availability of skill, what is the costs, so that when someone is coming up with a project, costs are very important for us. The clients, everything depends on that. It's not that anybody comes with a limitless budget. In our 30 years, I have not met one client who's got a limitless budget. Ask any young architect over here. Has anybody come and said, no, don't worry about money at all, just give me a design? Nobody does that. So it is essential. So I think we have to integrate it into our academics at some point, or at least drive home the point that it's important.
True, very true, very true. So I'm going to go to the next question due to lack of time. This is actually a very interesting one. So what is your take on long working hours and night studios in an office? And how does your office work?
Oh, no. I don't like night work at all. I don't like that, and I don't entertain it also. I tell people, boys, office shuts down 6:30, 7, nothing later than that. I like to go back home early. I have a family and I enjoy spending time with them. I like to sit and play games, play caroms, watch TV and all that stuff. I think we need that downtime. And I don't believe what work I could not do in the morning, I can only do it at night. All that I don't believe. I know as a student, we used to do all that stuff, staying up late in the night and doing all this work, because half the time we were just inefficient in the daytime. I think if you have a good work environment and a healthy work environment, come in the morning, finish your work, and go back in the evening. If you're not able to finish your design work and your detailing and anything in your stipulated time, then you're in an inefficient office. I think you don't need to do it. In 30 years, we have not done this late nights. Probably I can count the number of times we've done late nights. One, we don't accept impossible deadlines. Two, if we have a deadline, we stick to it. So I think it's a myth, and it's probably it's an image that we create. But I personally, Siddharth, we want our home time. In fact, I'm a guy who enjoys 2-day weekends. Now, unfortunately, because of some work pressure, we've come back to our every alternate Saturdays being off. Reeves, you had also asked me once, can you come on a Saturday to do this this interview thing? And I said, no, Saturday I'm off. So I'm very
exactly
my downtime. I think for the amount of work that we put in during the day, I like my downtime. So no late night hours in our office.
And now, like you said, the kind of inefficiency, or probably even the culture of trying to work late night. So this is like something that you can also. You've seen many young firms, many people from your office have also gone ahead, started firms. They've been your colleagues, and now they're working as your competitors, but not in the very competitive sense. I'm just saying they have started their own firms and they're bidding and they're working. So what would you like to tell them? If you have to stick to this time, what is the one thing that they should definitely follow as a firm?
See, there's something that I have personally done, and I know Siddharth does it as well. And Siddharth is one fantastic young designer that I have met. He's years younger than me, and I've seen him as a guy with very, very good work ethics. So one thing is that I make it very clear that I'll have a very clear target for the day and for the week. What are my targets? What am I planning to finish? So if there is some design that is going on, if it's a design stage thing, then see, one thing is design is a constant process. I can't just switch it off and say, okay, it's 6 in the evening and I just switch off and then I go off. No, design is all the time happening in your head. And when I say work, sometimes I'm sitting up at home and I'm just making a little sketch here, there's some idea, there's some thought. But I say, okay, I need to flesh this out tomorrow when I go back to work, or I need to discuss this with Siddharth or with one of my colleagues, and so on. So that keeps on happening. But that should not be, eating all your time and, only doing that. No, that's not what I mean. So what I'm saying is that I set targets, daily targets, weekly targets, saying that, okay, we need to finish this at this stage, finish this at this stage, and so on. And this kind of percolates down the office across everybody. So when we set targets, Siddharth and myself, the whole team and the whole project begins to have targets. So once you set a target, then you're very clear. You know that you've got 3 days and 4 days and 5 days to finish this. So when I'm saying days, I'm talking days. I'm not talking days and nights. And if something requires 8 days, then it's going across 2 weeks. So be it. I will still have my Saturday and Sunday off, and then I can come back on Monday and work. So I think keeping realistic timelines, and I know young firms will happen and somebody come and say, எனக்கு scheme போட்டு கொடுங்க, நாளைக்கு evening கூட எனக்கு 2 option வேணும் and stuff like that. I know there are some idiots like that. In fact, such clients, I can only call them idiots. But there are people like that, and we probably have to tell them, look, it takes a little bit longer than that. So we need to set realistic deadlines and have clear targets and have a life, please, because every architect needs to have something outside of architecture as well. So I think it's important. I'm not at all a fan of this late night work stuff at all.
No, it's very interesting to see that, because many offices, they have this habit of working, and usually the blame falls on the client as well. So I think it's a very nice culture. Like you said, you need to spend, for the amount of pressure that architecture as a profession is, the stress and the kind of discussions, we definitely need our breaks. And I would really appreciate if all the firms can think about it, have targets, have work on those lines. So I'm going to move on to the next question. This is the question I think some senior architect had asked is, do you think budget is the only reason for government housing projects to be the way they are? Does that imply architects and architecture is now a very expensive affair?
I don't think so. One is, we have never done as a firm, we've never done any work for the government as such, that is being employed by the government. We've done some work for the Chennai Corporation, but mostly pro bono. Now, as far as government projects is concerned, this is a bit of a challenge that I see. I see that there's a big gap. One of the biggest clients as such in the country, because as in probably the biggest, probably 85-90% of all the projects in the country are actually government projects. But the number of architects doing those government projects are very, very few. So this is actually an inherently, the whole system there's something wrong with the system. We will not get into that debate right now. So the fact is that if the government projects are also handled in a more transparent manner and more inclusive manner. See, because one of the reasons also why we are not doing government projects is that we don't qualify, because their qualification criteria are different. They talk about what is your turnover and what's the size of, have you done 10 such projects or something of that sort, something which is very, very unreal, which is more catering to a very small section of firms. So which means those are the firms that continue to do these projects, and they do so many of them that probably design becomes a very, very small subset of the whole process. Whereas what we architects believe is that design is what makes a difference, is the difference that we bring to the whole system. We bring in, like, for example, today I believe that apartments are best designed by the developer himself or herself. Because they know exactly what they want. They know exactly what they can sell. So what is the architect there for? Only to give a facade. So I think that there lies a problem. So what happens is that when the architect says, okay, if they're calling architects and they're being transparent about it, invite young firms. Why should that be a criterion for an design idea? Does the design idea come only with a price tag? Why can't a 25-year-old architect who's graduated from your college, RVS, why can't he or she come up with a brilliant design, brilliant idea that can be executed? Why should they wait for that brilliant kid to, earn so much of money, make so much of, get some stature in terms of value, and only then they'll come up with a good design? How stupid is that? So let me not get sidetracked in that argument and discussion right now. But what I'm trying to say is, if the government comes up with they genuinely want to do housing, they genuinely want to do minimum cost housing for something, or there is a genuine problem, then come up to the designers, come up through it as a competition, open to everybody, and have a very fair evaluation system. Choose a good design, give opportunities to winning designers who have been chosen for them, and execute. Then you can you'll see a sea change in the quality of work. It becomes everybody's project. Everybody wants to do work on that. But why is it that government projects are only being done in the same manner, and everybody is fighting over small scraps and bits of clients who are outside of that 90%? Ridiculous. But that's the way it is, and it has to change. And I'm hoping that it will change in my lifetime. I'm sure it will, because I know that there is a lot of work in that direction. But so coming back to this question about budget and cost, I think more than anything else, it is the quality of design, the quality of attention that the client, like I told you the last time, the client has to have ownership of the project. In this case, the client is the government. Government has to have ownership. They should genuinely feel like, look, I want to put up housing for these people and I want to make a difference. It's not a project which is just come in piece of paper and they say so much square feet, so many people, LIG, MIG, HIG, and all that nonsense. That's not a client. That is a mathematical exercise. You can just put an Excel sheet and take it out. What you want is you want somebody to design an environment, and we want the government, the client to say, yes, this is the kind of environment I want. This is the kind of space. There should be a vision. If there is no vision, then where is the project? And most of your slum clearance board, most of your government housing is a project with no vision. It's only a bunch of numbers. That's not a project. So I think that has to change, and that has to change quickly. And if that happens, I think you'll see, and you'll find architects will be short of architects if the government starts employing everybody from everywhere. And I think at that time, we need quality designers. We want people who can come up with good design. So that will make a huge change to any city or state or even our country. So that is important.
Well, definitely. I think that's something that we are all striving for as well. And the question is, always there. At least we put it out front that everyone, there is more business here, but it's not being taken rightly, because we could see that in the last 8 to 9 years, so many new housing development projects have come up. There have been a lot of projects, and many of them look very similar. So I think if we get the right place for it, I think it will be a great opening for us to develop as a city and showcase it as a very interesting model. So I'm going to go to the next one because we have just 10 more minutes. This is a very nice question that I think almost all the architects have come on board. We've asked, have you said no to any project, and why?
Yeah, sure. So many times. And especially in the last 15 years, especially in the last 15, 18 years, we've said no many times. And it's again, one of the main reasons is, like I told you, we evaluate every client, and that's important. Initially, we just picked up any project that we could get. We could not do that evaluation because we needed the project, we needed the money, we needed a lot of projects under our belt. We needed that experience. Yes, we did that. But as we went along, we realized that we can manage financially without this project. We can manage even from our content-wise without doing a project of this nature. So we have said no. But when we say no, we say no politely. Either we say we are too busy, or not exactly saying that we're too busy to do your work, saying that currently we're just handling so much of workload. I will be free only after 3 or 4 months. Are you willing to wait? If not, please go to somebody else. Something polite. Okay? We should always be polite in our line of business. And it doesn't hurt to be polite. Why do you unnecessarily hurt a person? But we have said no when we feel that the wavelength of the client and ours, they don't match. And they come with a reference saying, so-and-so has said that you will do a very good job for us, or so-and-so says you're the perfect fit for us and all that. And when we discuss and meet and talk to them, then we'll be able to gauge and say, okay, this is a project that is going to have problems at some stage or the other. Then we back off. And we're doing this all the time. Actually, we have quite a few projects that we have said no to. But like I said, the last 15 years, we've been able to afford to say no because we were not financially burdened or anything of that sort. But very often we say no, actually. So it's not rare.
No, yeah, it's. But again, isn't it a little tough because with the kind of let's say there is a nice, very lucrative project and there's a lot of money, and there is a lot of opportunity as well. Like you said, many young firms have to take up projects and do. And while saying no, there are some compromises that end up. I definitely know that.
Yeah, correct. No, that's what I said. In the last 15 years.
15 years, yes.
So I said the first 15 years we took everything. We took whatever came our way, as many projects as we could. But what happens is in those 15 years you gain an experience. And like I was telling you, my discussion with money and what he was saying, because when you're looking at doing content work, doing something nice, something that you are happy doing, of course, the best situation is you're doing something that you like to do and you're also paid well for it. That's the best situation. So
it's a rare situation as well.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's not. It doesn't happen every time. It's great when you have such a thing like that. But I'm saying, otherwise, we always grade ourselves. We always say, okay, we got 6 out of 10, we got 5 out of 10 in this project, we got 8 out of 10 in this project, and things like that. So I'm saying that is one thing that we always have. But in our experience, what happens is now we have begun to realize the nature of the project, the nature of the client. And I do it only, I'm talking about the client themselves. So we should be comfortable working with them for the next, because it's an association for the next 3-4 years. So we should be able to go through that whole time period without having.
That's true. Definitely. I think that's very crucial. It's a more of a relationship rather than just, meeting them once in a while. It's a long, it's actually like getting into a very committed relationship with the client and the building, and there's layers to it.
Oh yeah, it's complex. So it's important. It's important to be able to do that. So we back off if we know that this is a problem. The project is a problem. In some case, we'll back off before we get into that.
Yes, actually, that's very important as well. And now we'll go on to the next one. I think we have 2 more questions. Now this question is come from a student. Actually, how do you think an architect should charge for a project?
Still trying to figure that one out. No, I think over the years we have worked out the percentage model, and I think the percentage model works best. In reality, really speaking, a percentage model works best. So it's a good idea for a person to look at a project cost, follow the COA scales, and then work a percentage and see what the value comes to. And then there is always the market consideration. Somebody will say, அவங்க இவ்வளோ சார்ஜ் பண்ணாங்க, நீங்க இவ்வளோ சார்ஜ் பண்றீங்க, this and that and all that stuff, right? So you can fix yourself a kind of a window and see what is the kind of range that you would be comfortable working on. At the same time, you should not work for free. I think that is a totally wrong thing to do. It's a bad practice. And see, again, this is highly layered. You might have, a client, somebody known to you, you're doing something for free. It is your choice. If you're saying that I want to do this, it's your choice. But as a practice, never do anything for free. I think it's not worth it. Charge them. In fact, I remember at the start of my career, there was a relative of mine, a very well-to-do relative of mine, who had come with some expansion to their house or something like that. I actually charged them, and they paid me also, which was actually really nice of them. But it just felt better that you just feel a little bit more respect that you're being treated as a professional, giving a professional service, and you're being paid for that. So that this was actually in my, I think I was doing my internship or something like that. It was well before my career really started, but I did some design work and I was paid for it. So I believe in that you should be paid for the work that you do, because it's intellectual work that you're doing. So having said that, you can set your targets. I know this is a big debate among us architects. We all get together and we say, this developer, this client, this kind of people, they charge this, they ask us to charge this, they compare notes and all that stuff is happening. But as a firm, we always have started with a percentage. And then we break it down as a rate per square foot or a lump sum or anything like that. But there will always be a back working which will tell this is the percentage and this is what we're comfortable working with. And sometimes, when the nature of the work is a little different, we also see the amount of time we might be spending on it. And the kind of, and if we are able to put some value to the time, like say, I am spending some time on it, Siddharth is spending some time on it, some of our senior engineers are spending time on it, architects and the office. So we put a kind of a value to it. And then we quote that as a lump sum. So, and we always have a back working for every fee that we are, arriving at, so that there is some sort of a constant yardstick that we maintain. So I always believe that a percentage is the best way to start a fee, fixing a fee. And then the format that the client is comfortable with, you convert it and you put it in. And you should also keep a window, a range to see what makes it comfortable for you without going too low. Because this going too low and doing all this exploitation, I'm totally against. I think it's just ridiculous. I know some of the numbers that some architects have charged, or I don't know, the client is just bluffing or whether they just throw these numbers over there. But I think that's nonsense. We should respect our own selves first and respect our work and charge for that. And I think the COA has got certain norms. Work as close to that as possible.
Oh, yeah, I think true. We can't work for free. Anything given for free is taken for granted and not respected. So I think every young architect will definitely have one of their uncle or aunt or someone who's going to be asking something free in the first part of their career. And I think it's quite interesting also how we handle it. So I'm going to go to the last question, which is, there are 2 or 3 more. So do you have the time for a few more minutes? Is that okay?
I'm fine, actually. I don't know if have I been too long and digressing?
No. It's correct, but we have too many questions. Other than that, it's fine. So yeah, we can share the question.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, just a few more minutes. What is your opinion about the current green building certifications that are in place right now?
Yeah, so this is also a heavily loaded thing, and I don't want to say anything that will ruffle feathers and stuff. But see, see, the intention of having a green building is great. The whole idea is we want to, and that's exactly the kind of work that we believe in doing as well. So we are talking about being energy efficient and environmentally friendly, and all that stuff is there. But the norms that we follow, I'm not entirely in agreement with. But I also understand where they come from, because I have had a fair amount of discussions with people in the IGBC. I've had a very long discussion with Mr. Suresh, who's currently, so at one point we were stuck in a traffic jam driving to a Bangalore airport for 2 hours. We were in the car together. We were only talking about green building. So, and so what I'm saying is that the intention is great, but I think the models have to be specific to every place. The model in India is specific to India. And we can, of course, borrow and learn some from other places, but our model is our model. And we have to have our own yardsticks. And they have done a great job. I think IGBC has done a fantastic job. But I think there is still a lot of work to be done on it, to really qualify a building as being a green. So, some of the norms that rile me up particularly is because it talks about the building inside, and they talk about disturbance. Like I do a lot of buildings which are naturally ventilated. So I like to open my windows and say at this time of the year you can keep it open, because my office we're doing that. In our office in Chennai, we run the air conditioning only for 7.5 months in a year. The rest of the time it doesn't run, which means I keep my windows open, I put the fans on, and we are quite comfortable. So it works. But what happens is there will be noise coming from outside. There's construction noise. There'll be this auto going tuck, 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 tuck. You're going to hear that noise. So there is going to be a fair amount of outside noise. Now, green building norms also say that this outside noise is disturbance. It's bad for it doesn't give you enough points. Now, how can you exclude this building from the environment it is a part of? How can you do that? You're not sitting in New York. You're sitting in Chennai. The noise is there outside. Dust is there outside. So what is dust outside? If you go out and walk on that thing, you can breathe the dust, or I'm carrying air conditioning, or I'm carrying a mask around my head, because we are carrying masks today. But I'm saying that the extension of this green building, see, the thing is, from green building, we need to look at green environment norms. Your building is a part of an environment. Is that environment green? Are you able to make that pollution free? I mean, all of us have to do it. But is that pollution free? Why only your environment inside should be pollution free? So that means I have to run air conditioning to run that. Does that make sense? So there is a lot of things. And I know everybody knows this, even the people who are framing these rules and norms, they also know this. But the fact is that they have to start somewhere. So I'm guessing that this is where we have begun. But there is still a lot of work for us to do. And we need to be real. We need to know that we are in such an environment. This is the quality of air that we have, and this is what we are breathing outside. And we cannot exclude it. We cannot be like in Singapore, where you're always in a kind of a clinically contained atmosphere. Wherever you go, condition everywhere, and you walk out, and then again you come back into conditioned space. I mean, we cannot insulate ourselves from our environment. So where does that leave your green building in a non-green environment? So I think our norms have to be different. So to have different yardsticks.
Well, that's a very, very interesting take. And I think it's also quite a lot to look into. And definitely, I think we have also become an IGBC institution, and our students are also being trained on those norms. It's quite interesting for them to also see these things. But also, I think every norm or every rule that is put to us, I think we should also learn to question its origin, understand its current, I would say, the consequence of that particular and how it is in this place. So I'm going to be asking the last question. What are your expectations from young architects? who are looking probably to join KSM or generally also?
Yeah. So this is a discussion Siddharth and I often have. In fact, Siddharth has taken over the mantle of hiring people in our firm. So what I've always believed is that aptitude is one thing which we talk about, writing these aptitude tests and stuff like that. But I think being an architect, we need to have the right attitude, to be honest, because you need to be really patient. You need to be having the drive and the motivation to do a lot of work. We are a very work-intensive profession. We do a lot of work, and we do work. I mean, mind work, and there's a fair amount of patience involved. So you really need to have the right attitude to be smiling all the time, going through all these rigors in the day, and handling projects, the various problems you face, right, from the client to the design process, taking out of the drawings, negotiating with various collaborators in the design process, taking it out to the contractors, and then the contractors begin to construct. They need to understand what you're talking about. You need to learn from your mistakes. You need to be able to correct your mistakes, execute, look at the project, see if it's coming out the right way. So, we're faced with challenges at all times, and every time we are answerable, and we are the owners of the design. So we need to make sure it comes out, and then finally it comes out. And then the next project begins, and again you start. So, we really need to have the right attitude. We need to be able to put in a lot of hard work. We need to have a lot of patience. Sure, aptitude will help, but I think nothing works without diligent work. So I think it's important that you have the right attitude to put in a fair amount of work and still be happy about it. So that's important.
Thank you, sir. I think that's a very nice way to put it. The right kind of attitude is essential for all of us. So I think that's the last question. And thanks a lot for accepting our invitation to be here, sir. I hope the conversation was interesting. Usually architects generally present their works, but this time, this entire FOA, we plan to make it into an interview with questions from students and firms. So I think the session was interesting for you as well.
No, I enjoyed it. I don't know. I was doing most of the talking, so I hope the others didn't get bored, right?
But no. I think it was very interactive and very interesting, and a lot to listen and hear also. So thanks a lot for accepting the invitation, sir. And I would like to invite you, to our Center for Design sometime in the future, where we could, have a direct interaction with the students as well someday.
We'll do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.